Drum roll. And greetings, Earth family. Okay. I'm trying to take it more serious, you guys. Okay, so greetings, Earth family. Hi, how are you doing? Today we are here talking with Amanda Rae. She is a wonderful, wonderful healer, shadow worker, many titles. Maybe you could actually tell us about the things that you do so I don't butcher any of it, please.
Absolutely, because it's a mouthful. So thank you so much first for having me on. Yeah, so I'm a healer, I'm a medium, I'm a channel. However, my career is psychedelic integration, and I specialize in alternative recovery with that.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah,
Thank
jack of all trades, master of none.
You know, while that saying is great, I'm not too fond of it because you know, we're kind of discrediting ourselves in a way. Wouldn't you agree? Because we kind of are mastering these things that we're absolutely obsessed with.
This is true, right? I know. Isn't it interesting? It's like, at what point do I get to say that I'm the master? You know what I mean? Because it's like, I do think about that a lot, because it's like, you know, like we're always walking that balance of like of staying humble and remaining the student of life, you know, but also being able to be like, but I am also a teacher. I've also like really mastered this craft, even though there's always more I can learn about it. This is my special interest, which means it's going to continue to be my special interest. And there's so many ways so many more things to keep learning about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's my hobby. I'm pretty sure that's your hobby, just learning about all of this stuff.
All of it. Yep.
Well, I mean, technically we'll never be, not never, but we'll technically for a really long time never be masters, because there's just so much to continue to learn. At the same time, we kind of are mastering this stuff.
100%. Exactly. Yes, that's so legit, because it really is true. You know, I think that's what I can get guilty of, is not giving myself enough credit, because especially when we'll get into like my background and how we got here, but especially because my path was messy and dirty. And so, you know, I can still, and I've gotten much better, but I, you know, can still have the whispers of the imposter syndrome, if you will, that goes like, who the fuck am I? You know what I mean? And this person's got the degrees and the things that say that they know all this stuff, but then, you know, but I just know it and don't know how I know it. So, you know, that can be harder. Yep, exactly. Yep. And now it's like stepping into that, like, it doesn't matter. I don't need credentials. I don't need to give you sources. If you want to look it up. If you agree, great. If you don't. But this is
it's okay to have source be the source.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Source is my source. That's what I say whenever somebody's like, can you give me sources for that? I'm like, source, check yourself.
Word.
Yep. Exactly. Yep.
Our vibe is so very similar. You got so like before we got on here, I'm not even gonna go into what we talked about.
Yeah, right. No, because it's gonna start a whole can of worms being opened up.
But yeah, me and her, we just kind of like we vibe. We
just totally nerded out in the best possible way.
And we have discussed that me and her and another wonderful being that has actually already been on this podcast. She probably, if she says yes, because I haven't asked her yet, but we're gonna go into a topic that we'll, I guess, if we remember, we'll just
that's always a possibility.
We'll discuss at the very end of this episode. It just kind of, we don't want to like throw it on you right away, but anyway, if we remember, it's coming.
I dig it. Yep.
We'll see what happens. So so let's try to get into the topic of your ascension journey, the good and the bad and the ugly, etc.
Love it. So my ascension journey was definitely through hell. Like, so I can honestly say, right, like people will say like when they like reawakened or whatever, and I'll say so 8 years ago, I used a really beautiful plant medicine and psychedelic that helped me to trust how different and unique my path was. So that's when you could kind of say I like reawakened, quote unquote, but I will say I've come to understand I was never asleep. So I I always saw the world differently. I used to feel like I lived on the other side of a mirror. I can remember like one of my biggest fears when I was little was thinking I wasn't real. Like, am I even real, or are they not real? Because obviously, of course, at that point, had this, it had to be one or the other, And so I was so confused and it was so lonely. And of course, I believed I was wrong. You know what I mean? Like, and, but I saw through, especially once school started, man. I mean, like, I'll tell you, in first grade, I got in trouble because I would not turn in homework because I was like, this is stupid. However, every disabled kid would turn in their homework with my handwriting because I wanted them to pass. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I wanted them to like feel supported and do good. I just didn't give a shit. And like, so I have like literally, man, I mean, I remember even like in fifth grade, I like made a teacher cry because she was talking shit about one of my friends who had muscular dystrophy. And I went up to that woman, just no fear, and was like, listen here, ma'am, like, this boy is only supposed to live to the age of 16. You have no idea what his life is like. And so, I mean, I've toe to toe with a police officer in seventh grade, because I like couldn't conform, like, and I wanted to in a lot of ways because I knew my life would be easier, but I couldn't. And so what happened was I adopted, of course, the label of the bad kid, I couldn't. I would also too, like, so then once, of course, like now you get puberty involved, right? And like, and that confused the shit out of me because I was like friends with these girls at one point, and all of a sudden now like we have boobs, and suddenly like I'm a slut. I don't know, so it was so confusing. And I just, so really kind of what happened was I remember, so seventh grade was a really pivotal year. That's, when stuff really started to kind of hit the fan for me. And I remember in DARE, of course, the DARE program, right? Being taught about all of these different substances, feeling also inside of me that inner knowing that what I was being told was a lie, which also just really piqued my curiosity. It was, so I was called to drugs at a very young age. And I don't like to call them drugs. I think everything's a medicine. Honestly, I believe everything is about our intention. I don't like to like label and box things that, I mean, they're spirits. To me, it's all a spirit, right? And sometimes that spirit's going to make us channel a darker aspect of this reality. And some spirits are going to help us to channel higher aspects of this reality. But either way, they're helping us to channel and release something. And so I started, I like knew in that moment in seventh grade, like the minute I could get my hands on stuff, I was going for it, and it started really like, honestly, to me, it always felt like research. Like I just was so curious about consciousness and about the ability to change your consciousness. And, but, so things, like I said, though, with life, of course, then like diagnoses come into play, and they would, label me, with ADHD, depression, anxiety, bipolar, and I like didn't necessarily vibe with any of that either, but was like, okay. And just like I said, I just like kind of assumed that I was broken, which ultimately led me down a path to choosing heroin. Was like my first love. I like had gone through at that point several different sexual assaults. I was expelled from school, and just like I said, I really fell into this bad girl role. Was like, and it felt like such an amazing armor, because I also knew I was a freaking marshmallow. Like I loved harder than it would rip me apart. You know what I mean? How deeply I loved. I also had the fear that I was evil. Like, even though I loved so deeply and knew I was a marshmallow, so many really intense, traumatic experiences would happen to me over and over again. And I remember thinking to myself at a young age, like, I must have been like a really evil person in a past life, or so. Like I must be evil because I don't know why this keeps happening to me. And so, and my experience with heroin was, honestly, at the time when I was 18, it was a straight up suicide attempt. I had just lost an ex-boyfriend, but we were still very, very close. And a really good friend in a drunk driving accident. I got in my own car accident and was sexually assaulted 3 weeks prior to that. So I was just like done. I was like, this, you know what? Like, I check out. And so I ended up running into somebody from high school that was very clearly high, lied to this poor kid. Like, now I think about how shitty this would have been for him. I lied to this poor kid and told him I had done heroin before. Was like, oh yeah, totally got this. Because I was really hoping to overdose. Like, that was kind of like, honestly, my intention. I knew I'd either die or I'd get high, and I was cool with either one. And so he said I could come to his house. And because I didn't know anything else about this substance, I let him shoot me up right away. So I went from 0 to 100 real quick. There wasn't baby steps. Prior to that, it was like maybe like drinking every once in a while and smoking weed or whatever. But yeah. And I remember, like, when he did the thing, I stood up because I was like, oh shit, I'm about to die. Right. Like, so I stood up and went, and then all of a sudden, this warmth took over me. And I realized at that time, in that moment, that was the first time I had ever felt safe in my body. Suddenly, all of these intense sensations that I had always experienced were quiet. Right. And so at the time, I did not realize what I was doing was numbing my psychic gifts and abilities. And I didn't know that I was a psychic, you know what I mean? And that's why I was, experiencing all this stuff. So yeah, and once I've been able to look at it like that, that helped me let go of that shame, right? Like, of course, if that's the first time I ever felt safe in my body, or anybody else that wrestles with addiction feels safe in their body, it makes sense that they would do anything and everything to keep chasing that feeling. So essentially, I was on that journey with heroin for about 8 years. And that was all still a part of my ascension and awakening process. I've really come to understand, especially after getting clean, I will have periods of time where I feel like I'm withdrawing just from the ascension symptoms. And so I correlated the two together and was like, oh, wow. So like every time I was actually withdrawing from heroin in the third dimensional reality, that's how it was showing up. But really, it was my body upgrading and integrating these energies and releasing these karmic patterns and stuff. So essentially, I really like took a turn when I turned 21 in jail and hit my knees and was like, Jesus, take the wheel. Essentially, was like, I don't know what to do. And that is when it's like my mediumship kicked back in, and this bright light came and filled me up more than the heroin did, like safer in my body in like a real way. Right. And so, after that, I started trying, right. I did not accomplish staying clean for a few years, but that's when I was like, oh, there's something else happening here. So ultimately I went through lots of different, like I let my spirituality grow. I would have to say that I was on more of a Christian path because I did call to Jesus in my cell, but I never resonated with Christianity and a lot of the teachings of the church. Like, so I consider myself to be a disciple of Jesus. We're like, I want to be like Jesus versus like just worshiping Jesus. Right. So, so I'd say that's like where my path started was Christianity, but especially, I tried to go to several different traditional treatment programs. And again, it was one of those feelings, same as I had in school, where I was being lied to. I was like, no, this doesn't sit right. Like, I can't believe that I am broken or different because I lived a life of a lot of very intense traumatic events and chose to numb that out. Or like, and again, at this time, like I didn't even realize, the psychic component of it, but couldn't subscribe. So eventually got to the point where I had to just follow this knowing. And so I sat with a really beautiful medicine called Ibogaine 8 years ago. And the medicine was just a catalyst. I had the experience with my guides, with my higher self, with death too, and understood it was made clear to me that I wasn't wrong. Right. Like, and that doesn't mean that everybody else is wrong, but that I wasn't wrong for myself, and that other people were also going to resonate with this, and that I needed to continue pushing forward. Right. And so that opened up, and which is why I became a psychedelic integration coach, because I had to learn what to do by learning what not to do, because that's essentially, again, that's how I've learned. So after my experience, it just kind of all started to fall into place, really. It started just with like, honestly, the first commitment I made to myself was falling asleep every night to solfeggio frequencies or sound healing like that. So I can reprogram in my sleep. I don't have to work for it. I don't have to do anything. So it started there, right? Which then like led to me remembering at one of my treatment centers, I was hooked up to a machine that told me I'm a very gifted meditator, which makes sense because I exist in the theta realm of things. So I was like, okay, meditation, like I can do that. Right. And, which led to like a pretty intense addiction to meditation because you can get addicted to healthy things. And so I was in the astral realm fucking 6 hours a day, like just didn't want to touch back down to earth. Right. Didn't want to ground. People would tell me I needed to ground. I was like, no, thank you. I like it up here, which led to a very intense spontaneous Kundalini awakening. About 2 years after, about 2 years after the ibogaine. And that's when that's when I really became a clear vessel and channel, and all of my mediumship abilities really opened up to a point where I like no longer necessarily even want control of my body or vessel. Like I've given it over to my higher self, you know what I mean? And like whatever is best for me. And so, and I do think that these spontaneous Kundalini awakenings are happening more and more to people who have no background or experience. And, so, and like you said, it's kind of like not like a never ending process. I know that I do feel like we'll get to a point where it's more stable, right? But always continuous, so like I said, it was a lot of trial by fire awakening process.
Love it. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I really appreciate the rawness, the honesty, the darkness, really.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah.
And as many people consider this to be the case, that whenever we go through the really, really dark levels of our experience, like the more capacity we have for the light. Like it's similar to like the more your heart breaks, like I've noticed like my sensitivity allows my heart to break really like really crack deep, and but on the other side of it, like the way I've stated it is, I don't know if I've heard it somewhere, probably I've heard it somewhere, I'm not sure, but like it feels to me that like all those cracks are just more surface areas to love with.
Amen.
Right.
Amen.
So it's like I like the depth one way, so the depth could go the other way.
For sure. Because it's like you get, like in so many ways, having my heart broken over and over desensitized me to like I don't have fear of it breaking. Like where I used to run from love or from good experiences because I was afraid to lose it. And now it's like I've had shit taken from, I have lost it all, regained it, lost it all, regained it. I've had my heart broken, end of relationship, whatever, that like I just welcome experiences. Like I'm not afraid of how long it's gonna last or needing to attach to it and just like enjoying it in each moment.
Exactly. Same. We've been through so much shit. We're just like, hey, if it comes, thank goodness.
Yeah, right.
It leaves.
Right, exactly. I'm gonna be fine either way.
It's experience. It makes us wiser. That all the pain, all the experience, it makes us wiser. It's okay. It is what it is. Now, while I'm in the moment, I don't like it, of course, but
of course.
I understand it from outside of it.
Yeah, exactly. It makes it so much easier as long as it's like, because you've got to that's what I recognize too is and a lot of like the like false spiritual teachings that make us feel like we have to constantly stay at this high vibration, right? Is then we're not honoring our humans experience because we stay just like in our fifth dimensional consciousness of like, this is serving a purpose. But it's like, yes, this is serving a purpose, but also my human can feel whatever it is feeling right now because it's about the human's experience in this life.
Mm-hmm. And whenever we go through those kinds of phases where we're like overwhelmed with, let's say, depression, whatever the case, heartbreak, whatever it is, there's other light workers holding down the fort. So we don't always have to be like, because like our job technically is to anchor the light.
Yeah, exactly.
And when we're going through our like human experience of darkness or whatever, again, there's others that are holding the light. Don't be hard on yourself. At some point you'll get out of that. You'll join the rest. And people think, it's okay. We all take
tag team.
Tag
yeah,
team.
absolutely. Yeah.
Your turn.
Tag team. Yeah, you're never alone. 100%.
Human experience, absolutely. Gotta. We can't transcend it. This whole idea of like spirituality is transcending over everything. No, it's not.
No, exactly. Because the ascension process is a descension process. Like you said, it's anchoring the light into the human.
So I don't like to use the word descension just for a specific reason.
Okay, love it.
So for me, it is anchoring, like our higher self, our light self, whatever. It's anchoring in. So the reason I don't like to use the word descension is because I get to perhaps introduce a lot of people to the topic of anthroposophy.
I love it. Yes.
Anthroposophy states, and mind you, this is channeled from like the very, like if you really dig like rabbit holes into the really like up there past like spiritual teachers, like people that made a big difference in the world. So people like Rudolf Steiner, Helena Blavatsky, there's what's his name, what's that guy, what's his name, hold on, what's his name, I'm not gonna remember it, am I? Nope,
it's gonna just come to you as we talk.
So like basically like really big deal people, they've channeled technically the same information. Anthroposophy, which is anthroposophy. So basically what it's I'm gonna try to like basically throw in the basics of it. So so each solar system or each sun, whenever it's ready to do its development, projects its let's say it's itself into the physical world. So basically it's like parts of it, so hence the planets. So the different stages or whatever, different lessons or different structure or whatever you want to call it, like the different things that we need to go through as humanity. So so right now we are in, I'm going to call it phase, what is it, 4? So basically it starts from up here, right? So it's like it starts from, I'm not even going to get into the planets, like if somebody wants to dig into that, like that's on their own. So let's say they start with this one planet, and then there's another planet, there's another planet. So we're literally coming from spirit or etheric beingness or whatever. So I'm going to say spirit. We're coming from spirit. So spirit wants to come down into physicality, get low enough so there's polarity. So we're coming down from being like spirit beings, physicalizing more and more as we drop into densities. That's the descension. We're descending through the dimensions. So that the ascension and descension stands for dimensions. So that's what the wording stands for. So now we're at the 4th, which is there's 7. So everything is technically in 7s. When you go into spirituality, there's a lot of, you'll see the number 7 a lot. So anyway, so we are finally at this mid planet where we got to the most dense possible version of ourselves. We have all this polarity to learn from. We are learning hardcore, etc., etc. So now finally we are going back up. We're starting to exit, or like working on exiting from Kali Yuga. So we're going up now. So like now we're gonna be in, going into other spheres is what we're calling them, like other planets, like spheres. And these planets are technically inner solar like ish. So I think the next one is Jupiter, but without getting into that once again. So yeah, we're now going back up. So this ascension process that we're going through, we're going up in the dimensions. So like, 5D, whatever, a lot of us don't like to use the 5D because like then people get all big headed. It's just like, it's not that anybody's better. We're just in different places, etc. Like, we're doing our thing. So what was my point? I totally went into a tangent. Oops.
No, but I love it. No, thank you for that. Because now I have to do some research, because I that just like the imagery made so much sense. So yeah, Rudolf Steiner. What was the other guy's name? What's that guy that did a lot of channeling? Why can't I remember his name? But I'll give you his information.
So I don't know if I introduced you to a YouTuber called Gigi Young. She actually talks about this topic a lot.
Okay, cool. I definitely want to hear about it.
She has extremely long lectures, and
Okay.
they're just, mwah, oh
Love
my
it.
God. So she's like hardcore, because she was just like, things just don't make sense. She was like, I've been digging for years, and she's like, she's not like, she's really good. She's really good at explaining all this stuff and putting it together. She's a channeler, so she goes into her own, like world, whatever. She's like, she's wonderful.
Love it.
Yeah, what was my point? What were we talking about? I don't remember.
What were we talking about? Let's circle back around. This is what happens when you live in a meditative space.
Right? Same. I've always lived this way. And I was like, I've put it as one foot in both worlds. So like, one is in the physical and one is in the spirit. That's how I didn't understand how else to put it. But yeah, so then I was saying I live in a meditative state, but I think it's more than that. I think it's like you said, theta. I think it's like living, because yeah, that it makes sense, because I don't, like, I have to put myself in a different state to be able to socialize.
100%. Yeah. That's why, like, that's like why, especially even to like, when you start looking at it with brain frequencies, like so many substances make sense. You know what I mean? Like, and like, that's what's hard is like, so when they give like kids Adderall, essentially what they're doing is like putting their body into fight or flight mode with the over exhaustion of the adrenal gland, right? Which takes them out of what feels like fight or flight mode in their heads, because they are unaware of how to bring their energy down from the higher chakras into their body. But we've got plenty of tools and other ways to be able to do that. If we can know that that's what's going on, we don't need to keep on depleting our body and putting it in fear mode just to get it back into survival mode.
It's wild. It's wild. But I'm trying not to even go there.
I know, it's like we can go on more tangents.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Okay, so because I want to talk about you. All right, so yeah, let's talk about alternative recovery and its relationship to spirituality.
Amen. So thank you for asking. Now, I came to the conclusion a few years back that I was not alone in this experience, right? That my addiction was directly correlated to my psychic abilities, which you could say, whatever people want to say where they come from, right? Like whether I was like, hypersensitivity attuned because of traumas in my life, like what I was born this way, I chose this path, it's all feeds into it, right? But like, once I started to remember things too from childhood, like the night terrors that I used to have. And again, I always worked and saw the darker things, you know what I mean? Which again, helped me to have very little fear, because I've like stared demons in the face and been like, I love you. You're okay. I see you, So, so once I like really started to realize I couldn't be alone in this, that this was like really what was happening, because all of this mediumship stuff doesn't show up cinematically. That's the thing that we all need to understand, is that it doesn't show up like it does in movies. We're working with the subtle energies, right? Like when I get visited by a higher dimensional being, it's not an alien standing in my bedroom. You know what I mean? Like I'll be like just about to fall asleep, or I'll be in meditation, whatever the thing is, or just on like in a deep relaxed state sitting outside, whatever the space is, right? Typically for me shows up as light. Like it's like light and a feeling and a color. And like you get the tingle, like you feel it. You just know that you're in the presence of something. And a lot of times, like the way that it speaks to me is it sounds like white noise, like you know what I mean? Like you can't decipher what it's saying. When you try to decipher what it's saying, you like lose it, right? It's just about like allowing it to come through. And you start to, when you allow it, you get feelings, you get images, it gets downloaded into you, And so again, like I said, it doesn't, and so it took me a while to figure out what was happening, because I kept waiting for things to show up cinematically. So I kept doubting what it was I was experiencing, and like I said, once I realized all of my sensitivities and like, and the ways that it does show up for me, the more I accepted what was happening, the stronger that got. And you know, to the point where I have seen a physical manifestation has appeared in front of me. And I would tell you, it's funny because like you think you ask for this stuff because you're like, come on, let me just like, you know, like I know you're there, you know, so you ask for this stuff, but the frequency is so high, it will stun you. Like I sat after I said it was, I want to say it was like Lemurian feeling. And it was like coming from, like, it was more like a time traveling essence. But again, like I said, not entirely, I couldn't speak to it because I was stunned in place. I was in like a mountain up in California and I didn't move for a half hour, just sat there frozen still, you know, and couldn't really even speak afterwards for a while. So it's like, that's the thing is like for these beings to lower their frequency enough to be able to like show themselves actually, like you got to be able to meet them halfway. So yeah, so that's the thing is, like I said, the more I've been able to allow myself to open up to that, the more I've been able to help other people do the same thing, which is what I love to do. So that's why I'm a psychedelic integration coach. That's why I specialize in alternative recovery. So essentially I help other people open up to their spiritual gifts that you know, and it's not always like, to me, recovery doesn't just mean substances. I think every human is recovering from something. That's another form of my alternativeness, right? Like I could not buy it when people said that my brain was different and broken and was forever going to be this way. And I have to limit myself from all of these other experiences that I could have in life because I'm not capable or powerful enough. And, you know, another thing, it was like, I couldn't, like, I didn't understand sobriety. Like, what does that even fucking mean? You know, like to me, that sounds like a punishment for being broken or different. And then again, no teacher, no sponsor that I could have had a definitive answer. It was different for everybody what that meant, right? Like, so for one person, if I got prescribed something from a doctor, I was okay, right? For another person, if I took cold medicine, that was a relapse, you know, like, so there was just nobody could give me a straight answer. And I am somebody who, if I can't understand or wrap my mind around the why, or have it make sense, I can't do it. Like, just like homework, right? Like, I just don't get why this is important. So that was the thing. So that was never going to work for me. Every time I made sobriety the goal, I fell short because I just didn't understand it. And then of course, when I would do something that felt like a relapse, I would get fuck it mode, right? Well, I already did this thing, so I'm just going to like go for it. So when I changed my goal, my intention to freedom, and allowed myself the space to experience, especially like I said, now, you know, after using a powerful psychedelic, I was very much so opened up to these different plant medicines, right? And really was like, you know, got in touch with my intention, you know, like I did have a long period of what you could call sobriety after my experience with Ibogaine, just because I wanted to first like figure out what the fuck just happened. You know what I mean? Like, just like holy, like, you know, self-induced ego death. So I took that space, but I didn't ever tell myself I couldn't have anything. And I think that's what helped me to have that space at first, was like, no, we're just taking some time right now. Right. And then like down the road, we can like implement things and see if it works for us and what doesn't, you know. And that's what helped me, you know, to like, I didn't do any substances or anything for like, probably like 5 to 6 months, you know. And then it started with like weed, and it was something, and that was never like necessarily my thing, but it really helped with my tummy. And I definitely I was like, oh, I really do use this medicinally. Like, my goal isn't to get high. And that's what kind of like changed, is I noticed I no longer liked to be out of control of myself. I know I like to microdose things. I like, you know what I mean? Like to, and I, you know, and any spirit I use, no matter, even if it's a pharmaceutical cold medicine, like that, I thank it. I set my intention with it. You know what I mean? And I ask it to heal or work or help me in whatever way. And like, so I really work with people on figuring out and getting to the root of like what they're running from to begin with. Cause that's the thing, is I just feel like traditional recovery is a band-aid like everything else. You know what I mean? It's like, they want you to replace your addiction to a substance to an addiction to meetings. And, you know, so yeah, so my path to recovery just includes a lot more tools and coping skills than I feel like is kind of taught, which is so interesting. So now I'm going to get it on a tangent, because so I teach So I volunteer with an AODA program that is mainly traditional recovery. I let them know going into it, I'm an alternative recovery coach. I was like, listen, like, your recovery works for you. Like, I'm not ever knocking, like, whatever works for you, but I would love to be able to teach these people some coping skills. So what was super funny is I was at a meeting then, and it was ran like a 12-step meeting, which again, like I said, I have no problem going to. I don't say that I'm an addict in meetings because I believe in self-fulfilling prophecies, and I am no longer an addict. So I just say, my name's Amanda and I have the desire not to use today. But so I go to this meeting, right? And there's these old timers, and one of the guys asked, I'm about to get off of probation parole. I'm scared. Do you have any coping skill recommendations? Like, what are some things that I can do if I want to use after probation? And so I let, of course, the old timers go first, like, you know what I mean? And they're so interesting because they tell him the just your very basic AANA stuff, right? Like, get to a meeting, have a sponsor, have people to call, yada yada. And I'm sitting here and I was like, oh, okay, like, he already knows that part. So I was like, thank you for sharing. Can I share? And they were like, sure. So I was like, listen, like, here's some tool, like, breath work is gonna be a game changer. It was like, I've gotten higher on breath work than I ever did on drugs, meditation. And I start going over all of these different coping skills. Well, come to find out, after I share, the old timers are like, oh yeah, I do Wim Hof. Oh yeah, I'm actually a Buddhist. And I was like, then why aren't you sharing this? Like, you know what I mean? Because it's like, it's just like to me, traditional recovery has just become very microwaved in the sense that they're just like these words that everybody repeats, like, these are the answers to the questions and it's the same answer, right? So rather than sharing with this guy tools that they use, they are just repeating the jargon, so honestly, I would say, like, the version of the 12 steps that I created is very, very similar to the 12 steps. I believe a lot in what Bill W. created, which he also created after an acid trip, right? So he firmly believed that acid would be what cures alcoholism. I just reworded things because I think that, and I love that you talked about the words too, because I'm all about changing how I word things to make me feel more powerful. Same thing with the freedom and the sobriety. So I really just kind of like added on to the 12 steps and rewrote them in a way that gives us a power and helps us to, rather than like feeling powerless and telling ourselves, that's one of the things I was told all the time, to tell myself every day that I'm an addict and that I'm broken. I'm always going to be this way and I'm powerless to change it. And I was like, no, like, I can't say that because I don't believe that. So yeah, it's been just like a mission and passion to just figure out ways. And I tried on so many things. Like, that's what was my intention. It helped me to get outside of my own comfort zone and try new things because I knew it would be to help other people. So even if this thing wasn't my thing that I tried, it could be somebody else's. And then I get to teach that to other people. So yeah. And so, like I said, I think that, like, especially with addicts, I think that, we are some of just like the most highly gifted, sensitive, psychic beings. And that's especially why we're told we're broken. Same thing with anybody that's neurodivergent or people that suffer with mental health disorders. They're all the same fucking energy. It's all the same thing, right? And so we're, just told that they're disorders because that keeps us small and keeps us from exploring more. And so many people love their reason to be broken. Yeah. Oh, I can't hear you. Hold on. Let me see.
Oh, no, that was me. That was my.
Okay, I was like, oh no, what did I do?
It was noisy. So I was like, let me mute that. Damn it. Yeah. So okay. What was it? Where was I? Okay, something that you had brought up. Un moment.
Yeah, you got it.
I got this.
You got it.
Oh, the sensitives. Okay. So something that I spoke to, I think it was Mira. I don't remember who it was that I spoke to on one of the Ascension Stories episodes, to that, and other podcasts as well that I've been on, that they take people that are sensitive, and so basically neurodivergent individual, and the fact that they're sensitive they also have issues with being in social situations because they think differently, right? So they get picked on. So the fact that they're sensitive, so that hurts even more. So there's like all these things that are thrown at them, right? But they develop other comorbidity, I can never say that word, other issues such as depression and whatever, whatever other psychological issues. Now they take these people and they lock them up in mental hospitals. So you take all these special people, like for example, autistics, in my opinion, specifically autistics are the shamans of the world.
Yes.
So they take them, fucking lock them up. So okay, so if we take all our spiritual like spiritual people, and we take our shamans and we lock them up, what is the world going to look like?
Yeah.
This is not by design. This is by design.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I just wanted to drop that in there real quick.
No, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I know, I couldn't agree more. And like you said, it's all an offshoot. My neurodivergent, the fact that I saw differently, felt differently, thought differently.
You're crazy.
Right. So then of course, right, that's where the mental health diagnosis comes from. Because of course then I'm depressed and I'm lonely and I'm anxious and I'm scared and I'm seeing dark things. And so I don't want to tell anybody because I might be schizophrenic, right? But then of course, oh, cool, this substance makes me feel a little bit safer, right? So yeah, of course, like I said, it all just is this ripple effect. And I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to ask, because I could just keep going on tangents, but okay, so the next thing I wanted to ask was psychedelic integration and the importance of integrating.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, right, I learned what to do by learning what not to do. Yeah. So after my experience with Ibogaine, I had absolutely nobody to talk to. I knew one person who had this experience, but was definitely not a good
Do you
person.
want to tell people what Ibogaine is?
Yeah, I love that question. That makes
I was like, wait a second, that everybody knows. Hold on.
Yes. Why do I think too? Like, and I forget this, especially people, like lots of people know about ayahuasca. Not a lot of people know about Ibogaine. Okay. So yes, thank you for that question. So Ibogaine is, to me, I consider to be like the grandfather master healer. Ayahuasca, very similar, more feminine. Ibogaine, more masculine. So Ibogaine is essentially the psychedelic compound found in the iboga shrub. So there is iboga and there is ibogaine, both. Obviously, like they're technically the same thing, but like ibogaine is synthesized from the iboga, so it's more like an extract, if you will, like making it more powerful. So typically when I've sat with iboga, I'm not having as much of a profound like psychedelic experience as I am having some really profound conversations internally, right? Where like ibogaine, because it's so like potent, you can't, it's like DMT on steroids. Rather than like this 20-minute DMT trip, you've got like a 12-hour experience. And it is beautiful in the same way that any dark experience is, right? Like it takes you through your traumas. It takes you through the things that you're afraid of. I had to go to my own funeral, but I also got to be with all of the loved ones that I had lost, because I had such a hard time with grief and loss because I had lost so many people. So then I got to like come to terms with that. But so it's like, and at the same time, the wild thing about ibogaine is you feel it changing like yourselves. Like I would be like in the astrals hanging out with my grandma, who is like one of my guides, and going through all these different things and like learning about how powerful I was. And then also I would like have this like, urge or thought to like check in with my body, be like, what's going on down there? And it would be like, it's like a sci-fi movie, like where I could feel my cells like transitioning. And so ibogaine have become very popular with its work with addiction because of the fact that when you use this medicine, now again, this also depends on what you are on, because they are more and more opiates like Suboxone, methadone, and especially fentanyl are long-acting opiates. Ibogaine has a harder time working through long-acting opiates, which is why these, of course, are the mainstream things, right? So Ibogaine has the ability to reset your body, mind, and spirit to the space that it was before addiction, to the point where you don't experience withdrawals afterwards. So that's the pretty miraculous thing about it. It's like you go through a car wash, right? Like, so after my experience, which fortunately I said at the time, I was on heroin, which is fast acting. So it's a lot easier for Ibogaine to work through something like that. Alcoholism, same. I mean, even like honest trauma, mental health disorders, I have even witnessed it perform physical miracles. Like, I've had clients I work with that were literally only on opiates because of pain. Like, they're legitimate. They're like, I'm not even drug seeking. Like, I just am in pain. And left, not only not addicted to the opiates, but not in pain. And now if they have flare up, it's very manageable pain. Like, they can like take a Tylenol for, you know. So, and 2 people healed their infertility. So there are, because physical ailments are all energetic and traumatic as well, you know? So, yeah, it just does incredible work. But like I said, it's especially been known, you know, for its work in addiction, and it's used all over the world to heal. It's used in West African cultures as a way to heal, as a rite of passage into adulthood. This is really what I experience it being, you know, is you man up, you know, like, it was like, I suddenly was taking responsibility for myself. I wasn't this victim anymore, you know? And it's unfortunately highly illegal here in the US. So I'm very fortunate. I work with the best retreat located right outside Cancun. It took me for a while to find these guys. I wanted to find a place that included all of the things I knew my experience was lacking, right? Like, just the fact that I didn't have anybody to talk to after my experience was like, why are these people not offering aftercare, you know?
Oh, that upsets me.
So much. It's all just like get out. They're just trying to make money. They're not setting up
because to me, this is such deep stuff.
Seriously.
How can you not check
Yep.
in and make sure and have some kind of system, whatever, something set up?
Exactly. Well, that's huge. And that's why I decided, because I was certain I was going to work with these medicines at some capacity, but I recognize the world doesn't need more shamans. I am a shaman, you know what I mean? I'm a medicine woman, but the world needed people to go to learn how to integrate these self-induced ego deaths, whether it's from ibogaine, mushrooms, ayahuasca, San Pedro, like whatever the thing is. I mean, even I work with a really amazing ketamine clinic here where people are having full-on past life regressions, having no idea what's happening to them, and they need somebody to help them integrate that experience, you know? So, so that's where I saw we needed was people to help with afterwards. So that's why, to me, like, integration is the most important thing, because honestly, like, knowledge is just a rumor until it lives in your body. And I have met plenty of people who consider themselves to be on the spiritual path that have sat with all these medicines, but judge the shit out of everybody, like, you know, and they wear it as a badge and as a crown. And that's just because of lack of integration. That, you know, they had the experience, and cool, is a beautiful experience. I learned stuff, but they never called that energy down into their body or figured out how to use the information that they were given in a way to help service the planet. And that's what it should be about.
I'd like to also point out that if you do substances, if you do these medicines and all that stuff, does not make you spiritual. I'd like
Amen.
because there's people that straight up just do the stuff, oh, I'm spiritual, and they act
I call it Burning Man spiritual. Like, nothing against Burning Man.
Oh.
But it's just like, you guys are all really wealthy too, and you're burning the man, but aren't you the man? Then I just don't really understand, you know? Can't wait to have that experience someday. Can't wait to check it out. But that's what I call it. The people that are just spiritual when they're like at a festival and take some psychedelic, or just, you know, they said sit in circle, but then they sit here and they lord it over everybody, like that somehow makes them better.
Right.
And, you know, but the beautiful thing that I found about this entire spiritual experience is this energy that is, you know, both descending and ascending us at the same time, is making us be authentically who we are. And if you are somebody who veers towards the side of narcissism, you're going to get yourself a God complex. That's, you know, we're not going to be able to hide from exactly who we are, you know, and those of us who had a really hard time believing in ourselves and didn't think we deserved to take up space, or that, you know, we're going to step into our power and into our role as the powerful beings that we are.
there's a what do I call it? I'm gonna call it a sentence because for some reason I don't know what to call it. In the Bible that says something along the lines of the meek will inherit.
I think about this all the time.
No, inherit the what?
Inherit the earth. Yep, the meek shall inherit the earth. I think about that all the time. All the time. Like can't even say that's like one of the Bible verses that runs through my head all the time that just like reminds me it's not about how wealthy, how powerful, how whatever you are. It's about being humble. Like, you know, like it really is in there because there's, you know, I feel very called to step into a more powerful role and hopefully use that platform for good, but with no desire to have that power necessarily, which is why I feel like it's like, I'm like, oh, okay, spirit, fine, I will do it, fine, you know, but that's exactly it. The meek will inherit the earth. It does not matter your title, your riches, doesn't fucking matter.
Yep. Exactly. I just want to say, I think I already said, but I just want to say it again. Thank you so much for fucking doing this fucking work.
Yes, thank you.
And yeah, I hope there's more people that are, you know, rising to this kind of calling. Those people, you know who you are. You would have had a similar experience to Amanda here.
Yep.
Yeah,
Like that voice that tells you you have to be ready because you are never going to feel ready. I will tell you, the thing is like, I just had to become friends with my fear because, you know, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what you need to do with the fear. And I'll tell you, it doesn't necessarily get less scary. It gets more comfortable to be in the fear is what it is, you know?
Exactly. When I see fear, you know, within me, I'm just like, cool.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yep, right. Yeah.
Letting me know, doing it anyway.
Yeah, right, exactly. Got no choice.
Yeah, just balance it out with your heart. You're good. You're good because you can do it. And if you can't do it, you'll be okay.
100%.
You failed. That's how we learn. That's how we gain the wisdom. It's okay. Do it anyway.
Exactly.
Especially if it has the potential to help others.
Right. When so many people are afraid to be wrong. And it's like your beliefs are allowed to change. That's what
That's another thing. Yeah.
that's the thing. Like your beliefs should change. Like
we grow, we evolve.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. And so many people are afraid to like speak on something because they don't want to be wrong, or they've already spoke on something and they've come to the realization that they might have misspoken, but now they have to defend what they said and they can't be like, hey, you know, things change, you know, and that's the thing is like, we're, like you said, we're always changing. And I mean, never in my life, you would have told me 10 years ago, this is who I would have been. I would have said you were nuts and probably been a little grossed out by it because remember, I was the tough girl. So.
Right.
No?
I technically never wanted to be down this, you know, go down this route of spirituality. It was just kind of like, nope, you're pushing you this way. Nope.
Yep.
No, I want to be normal.
I know, exactly, right?
That didn't work.
I know, right? Now I'm like, what does it even mean? Now I'm like, oh, thank goodness, you know? But again, it takes that hindsight and that faith in the middle of it.
Yep, exactly. Absolutely. Okay, so let's get into breaking out of spiritual conditioning.
Yeah, so this one has been, I really feel called to dismantle a lot of the current spiritual conditioning and philosophies and programming. Like it was really difficult for me, even like on my TikTok platform, to speak about the things that I speak about because of not wanting to be necessarily included in that. And then I had to realize that like if people include me in that and can't see that I'm like trying to dismantle that, then that's whatever, you know, but like yeah, you know, anything that becomes mainstream, like it's like such a double-edged sword, isn't it? Like, well, I remember a time when I like couldn't wait for this stuff to be mainstream and like talk about this stuff with people. And now that it's happened, and I'm like, oh no, I get why you see it that way, but that's not.
Yes, I know.
You know? And it's like, so now it's like, or even like I love like my nature. I'm a nature snob, like in the sense that like I don't like the humans around with like I'm like just please get out of my spot.
I need space with.
I know. Oh, but so it's like I have this special spot that I go to, and there was never anybody there, never, right? And now there's always loads of people, and so like inner me is like, okay, this is you. This is good. The humans are. enjoying the nature too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, okay. It's like, you can't
Good
be a bitch
point.
about it. There's like, this is growth, but like, get out of my nature. So, yeah, so it's really important to me to help people understand that, like, we're not, like we talked about with the 5D thing, like, you're not going to the fifth dimension as if that's like a place, right? Like, it's like the third dimension is physical reality, right? So like when you die, you'll just like only exist in these other dimensions, right? But as long as you are a living human being, you're going to be here in the physical reality. And, you know, and it's like, so many people, like you said, get the big head where they treat like 5D like it's a party that only some people get into. And that, like, you know, and like, and we talked about too, even just like how you said, like, the medicine doesn't make you spiritual. Neither does doing yoga, neither does being a vegan, neither does, like, you know what I mean? Like, neither does meditating, neither does breath work, you know, like, that's not what it is. You know, everybody's having a spiritual experience. As a highly sensitive person, those tools have helped me to learn how to feel like I have a little bit more control over the experience that I'm in, even though it's not as much about control as it is about surrender. And with meditation and breath work, I get to choose to consciously tap into it. Now, am I religious about it? No, absolutely not. Some days I will do it multiple times a day because that's what I need in those moments. Other weeks I won't, you know, like, because I'm always having a spiritual experience, you know? And so, you know, I just like, there's so much, and there's just like this belief that we have to be happy or the high frequency all the time. And my guides have kind of shown me frequency in the terms of a color chart or a color wheel, rather than like higher to lower, because I think our human minds do that. And like, then it's like better or worse, which isn't like a real thing. They're all equally valuable emotions. You know, I've also really learned that it's very important when somebody, it doesn't matter whether, you know, I don't care if it's a stranger, this is just a good habit. Somebody asks you how you're doing, don't say good or bad, right? Because those things don't exist. Like, give your emotions a label, give it a name. How are you? You know what I mean? Like, I'm feeling really nurtured today, you know, I'm feeling really loved, or like, you know, but like, you know, or I'm feeling, you know, depressed, you know, that's, you know, that can work too. But just like, not like just like this good and bad, and trying to compartmentalize everything, and also like honoring everybody's spiritual experience, you know, like, it's like people that are into the new age thing think that like the new age is the only thing, just like Christians think that Christians are the only, you know, and they try to say like it's not a religion. I'm like, but it is a religion, you know? And so it's like, just like, you know, the being flexible with your beliefs too, and honoring that like there is truth in everything, even the things that seem like bold-faced lies. There's, you know, there is a reason behind it, you know what I mean? They said, like, you know, like when I think about when I was getting taught in school, right? And I was like, this isn't true. Well, back in the day, I would sit here and would have thought like I was being lied to, and it made me distrustful of people. But then once I recognized that like they weren't trying to lie to me, right? Like that was their truth and what they believed. And then that I was like, oh, okay, so I don't have to like distrust people. I just have to trust my truth, right? Like, it's not about what is outside of me, you know? And then it's about being the most authentic version of yourself, not the prettiest, shiniest, high vibe and positive. It's about being authentic.
Better than others.
Exactly. 100%. So I really feel called, and like, just like the elitism, like, man, like I had such a hard time too. I so don't like this whole certification stuff. Like, how silly is that? Do you think like that supposedly one person got downloaded with Reiki, and now you have to go to that person for them to attune you to Reiki, and then pay that and I'm like, nothing's been a clearer pyramid scheme. You know what I mean? So like, you mean to tell me one person only ever has downloaded with this gift and ability? You know what I mean? And in order to get certified by like the World Reiki certification, your lineage has to go all the way back to the first person. And it's just like this elitism, like you're doing exactly what you're pretending to be fighting against, you know? And so I really like to help people open up to like, and if like, dude, if you feel like, if that's how you learn is through certificate, you know, like I'm certified in a lot of different energy healings. It was just through my certification that I was like, I've been doing this the whole time. Like, why did I need somebody else to validate what I was already doing and already knew, you know? So it got to the point where I just stopped. Like, I'm very self-taught. I like to like listen to, like you said, YouTube and or like different stuff like that. But again, source is my biggest source. So for me, my thing has been learning how to trust my inner voice and not needing consistent validation from other teachers and things, and still being willing to speak on it, even though I can't necessarily back it up with a specific person right now. I'm sure there is somebody else who's downloaded the same stuff, because, I don't necessarily think I'm special, but and that's the thing, is like, we all have these capabilities. And so it's just like, yeah, demystifying the fact that, like, only some of, even like with the NPC thing, like, right? Like, do I think that some people are not meant to awaken in this lifetime? Totally. But I don't necessarily think they're like not source, or they're not real. They're just as real. Their role is different than mine. And I'm really grateful when I'm with those kinds of people that that's not my role, but I can hold space and love that person for playing their role perfectly,
I hear that.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah. The topic of NPC has been somewhat of a confusing one for me. So I did kind of like come up with my own like definition and all that stuff. All it is that you're not, let's say you haven't downloaded or whatever your higher self, and you're just kind
Yeah.
of letting the wind, like, oh, well, they told us to do this. We're swaying this way. Now we're swaying this way. That's all. To me, it did not make sense that there was nobody in the vessel. How is that possible? If a rock, I always use as an example, if a rock has, like, is a source, how can this actual human not have source?
Exactly. 100%. It's just the role that they chose to play. Because like you said, I mean, like, we live in a world that is held together by the polarity, right? Like, and that's how we learn. So there are people who are anchoring the opposite frequency and different something than we are. And so it's just like, I like I said, so now rather than being offended or feeling I have to change them or blah, 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 I can be curious and also appreciative. Like I said, because I'm like, dang, like, I'm so glad now that my path might have been hard, but I don't have to play that role, and yeah, exactly. Like I said, I know that I had a lot of work to do around that, because I definitely feel like there is something to honoring that, because in order to truly love people, we have to honor their role and where they're at, so when we, so it's like, not saying that everybody can't wake, we all have the same physical vessel capability, like, just, is that what we chose in this lifetime? Is that our path in this lifetime? Because it will be in another lifetime, right?
Every
So
single one of us will ascend at some point.
exactly.
However that is, even if it's us going back, re-merging it back into source and starting over again.
Yep.
Doesn't matter. It's all source is source.
Yeah, exactly.
You haven't remained your individuation, which is those that are now currently ascending. We're remaining our individuation. That's all we're doing. Yep. They're no less than, they just have they haven't gone the same route as us.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. 100%. 100%. And then, like I said, it just makes it so so much easier. And I definitely know, like I said, because I've been there. I think a lot of people, what ends up happening that I notice, again, going back to integration, is that people will get these downloads and they don't allow it to integrate into their vessel before speaking on it. And so taking the time to marinate in things, and I definitely can see this a lot with content creators, because they feel this pressure to create content, you know what I mean? And I get it, because I was there when I first started TikTok and did not expect the response that I got and like the amount of people. And then I felt an obligation. And so at first, I felt like I had to put out a video every day. And so then I was getting a little bit more kitschy, basic spirit, like, and all like, and like, I was like, no, like, I really want to say some things that might be triggering to people and are a little off subject, but I didn't want to rock the boat at the time. And so I started, and then I had to take some steps back and was like, I got to remember like my authentic voice and my truth. And I think that's kind of just what happens, is people get too caught up in the likes and the validation. And so then they just kind of like regurgitate other people's teachings in the way that they've understood it. Or again, like I said, they've gotten a download, but they haven't integrated it and allowed it to actually like be in their life so that they understand it on a physical level. Like I always call it truth with the capital T, right? Like somebody could tell me about their time, like somebody could tell me a story about Jamaica, right? But they've only read about Jamaica. And then somebody could tell me a story after they got back from Jamaica, right? So I'm going to hear and be able to feel the story more easily of the person that went there, right? It's like truth with a capital T, like it lives in your body now, right? Versus just something you've read and exists up here in the higher chakras.
Yeah, I hear that.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So I like to talk to people about like new ageism, like what it is.
Yep, yep.
So I feel like you know, people have all these different opinions, obviously, and rightfully so. Opinions, you know, everybody
Right,
is
right,
gonna have a different opinion. But my point is that there's a lot of like, oh, new ageism is bad. So here's what I like to bring up to that. And so the term new ageism is an umbrella term for anything that's outside of religion. And
yes.
I just want to kind of point that out to anybody that doesn't understand what new ageism is, because it's like, it's not that it's bad, because like, you know, like people kind of go like really hardcore, and I'm like, it's literally anything and everything that's outside of religion, you know,
I
like
like
past
that.
life regression, psychic ability, everything and anything is just under that umbrella. So
Yeah.
it's like I just like what I like to kind of put that information forth so people don't like, oh, that's evil. It's not, you know.
I feel that so hard because, so because that's the thing too, is like, so like, I'm like, just like I say, I'm a disciple of Jesus. I'm not a Christian, right? I believe that we've entered into a new age. I think everybody that went through 2020, if you're alive and conscious in 2020, we all can say like something shifted and we're not going back, right? Like, and how many times we know it throughout history, just how many, there's always new ages, right? There's the golden age, there's the Renaissance, like that's not anything new. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I would agree. I think that like, and I see a lot of like cancel culture people calling for people to stop talking about this new age stuff. Because there's a lot of people going into spiritual psychosis. There's a lot of people who are having spontaneous Kundalini awakenings happening. And people, of course, they need the blame. So they start to think that people are going through this because we talk about this stuff, versus knowing that people get through what they're going through because we talk about this stuff, right? Like, especially those of us willing to like put ourselves out there. And I mean, I had a friend who was not woo woo at all. Didn't necessarily, I mean, she's always been very open-minded, like not judgmental, but natural skeptic, but didn't believe in any of this stuff, didn't practice any of this stuff. And all of a sudden she messages me and was like, I need to talk to you today. If that's, it's like, I mean, it is my friend, but it's not even my friend, it's my sister's friend technically. And I really need to talk to you today. I think I had a Kundalini experience. And I was like mind blown considering who this was. And I was like, yeah, I'll be there in a second. And sure as shit, like not even like a small one. It was like, I mean, like and again, and she confirmed too, I have a strong belief that panic attacks are that's Kundalini ascension symptoms, right? And if you can go further into the panic attack rather than running from it, you'll be led through one of these experiences as well. But so, yep. So if for her, it started as a panic attack. She said she couldn't help but go into it. Like that. Then she's like, this voice clear as day is guiding her. She had to go through each of her chakras, and each of her chakras contained different insecurities that it like made her face. And when she'd face it internally, it kept switching from like really uncomfortable feeling to orgasmic. And she's like, and an orgasm is like not even the way to describe it because it's my whole body. And she's like, she was moving, or she's like, I was doing Kundalini yoga without knowing what Kundalini yoga was. And I said, this happened completely spontaneously. And she's like in her bathroom. She's like, I don't know how long this lasted. They made her take a cold shower, which I had that experience as well, like to ground it into my body. And she like, I mean, she's like, my life is obviously like forever changed in ways I can't even describe, but she's like, my fears, and like, and she's like, everything she liked, she was into like murder mysteries and like really like, like kind of like darker stuff. And now she's like, all I want to do is listen to like sound healing and like, and you know what I mean? It was like she's like, dude, I don't even know. Like it just all shifted. And that's the thing is like, she's like, but thank you, because she's overheard me talking about my experience. She knew what was happening to her, right? And that's the thing is like, I'm like, I'll be the crazy one. I'm used to being the crazy one. That's fine. You know what I mean? So that people, because this stuff is happening. Like it is it's like a bomb set to go off of inside of you, especially to people who have no practices. Because I get asked that question all the time by people who practice a lot of Kundalini yoga is, how did you do this? Right? Like I've been practicing this forever and it hasn't happened to me. And I'm like, because you're trying too hard. Like,
It's just whenever it's meant to happen.
Exactly. Yep. Stop trying to force it, because it is happening. For most people, it happens in small doses. It happened to me in such a
All doses, that's
crazy
right.
way. And that's how you want it to happen. Trust me. You know what I
Ah,
mean? After my experience, I couldn't talk for 6 months.
oof.
I was scared. I was like, well, this is my life now. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was intense. And so that's why I tell people all the time too, is like, it showed up for me in such a drastic way, because I spent a really long time running, but also because for the longest time, believing in myself was the hardest thing. Like I said, the imposter syndrome was so real for me, where I was like, I can't fucking do this, reliving past life as Jesus. And most people are like, yes, I am Jesus. And I'm like, oh God, no, please, no. Like, I don't want to do any of this. I don't think I can, so it was so scary for a while, because I just had to keep on accepting my power and abilities. So for people in small, especially, it releases your karma. So you have a dose of it, and now you have to face whatever you released energetically in your external world. Wow. So I had a shitstorm of karma I had to heal in a 2-year period of time following mine. It was just batshit craziness for 2 years, just boom, boom, boom. And I was like, holy shit, you know what I mean? So yeah, like I said, when it happens in small doses, then it's going to be more like, oh, this awakening. Okay, now I have to tell my mom my boundary, right? And you get like that small dose of it, rather than having to like face all of that all at once.
Right. You're so on point with that. Exactly.
Yeah.
When mine happened, I was 16 years old. I knew nothing. I've never heard anything about spiritual, nothing. Mm-hmm. It was many years later that I realized what had happened to me. Oh, wow. The scariest experience of my life.
Yeah,
it was the most unpleasant, the most scariest. It will forever, no matter what happens to me in my life, that will forever remain the scariest experience. Yeah, because I had no reference point. So it's great to hear. Like, I'm so glad that there are people talking about this. Yes. I'm so glad that the topic of spirituality is out there, so people are not alone.
Mm-hmm. That's the biggest thing. I said, and it's like, people can try to cancel, and like I said, and that's why it's like, people just get so tripped up on words, like I said, like, it's like the minute I talk about being a psychic or Kundalini stuff, they're like, oh, you're a new ager. And like you said, it's an umbrella term. I'm like, I'm a new ager. I'm a Taoist. I'm a Buddhist. I'm all of it and none of it. You know what I mean? I just started to call myself a dittoist, because like, somebody's like, I believe in evolution. I'm like, ditto, and somebody's like, I believe in Jesus. I'm like, ditto, like, I believe there's truth in absolutely all of it. Ditto.
Dittoist. Yeah. Nobody will understand, but nonetheless, it's cool.
Dittoist.
So let's get into soul recovery and all that stuff. What you got?
I appreciate you. Thank you. Yeah, that's gonna be my little shameless plug.
Good.
Yeah, well, because we're still in the process of creation. So I am doing my darndest. So like I said, I do the psychedelic integration coaching, but I am only one person, and I am feeling, especially with how busy I'm getting, that these medicines and all of this different way of healing is blowing up, and it's just going to blow up bigger. And so here's the thing, is like, we deserve to have the same kind of fellowship that 12-step recovery has, you know what I mean? And that is the biggest piece that I see is missing for a lot of people. Not everybody is as fortunate to have the family that I had to come back to. Right. So, and I eventually ended up making friends who weren't in recovery by any stretch of the imagination, but weren't using at the same time. So, so that's the thing, is like, I work with a lot of people who come from very abusive homes that are really alone, you know what I mean? And even though we're never alone, and as you know, like a star seeds, like we're all whatever we're all spread out for a reason, but I really so soul recovery, like I said, is I did my own version of the 12 steps that are very similar to the 12 steps, but more empowering. And it's more about, rather than saying, I've been powerless to this substance, it's I've lost control over my subconscious mechanisms, my protection mechanisms, because that's really all that it is, and you work together with your higher self, rather than, yeah, feel like you have to surrender all your power. It's owning your power at the same time while surrendering to your power and walking that fine line in the balance. And it's continuing to surrender your will to your highest timeline every day, and the being of service and stuff. But so really what I'm in the process of doing with soul recovery, a few things, is I am creating like a safe space that I want to have meetings, which hopefully will be in person, like as this does grow and we have more people in the cities doing the things. So, but it's going to start obviously virtually first. So we'll have like, daily, nightly meetings. I'm really like super lucky to be like training all of these other really beautiful people who are also on the same path to like help me do this stuff.
Hey.
Right, that's the coolest part. So we're going to have meetings. I want to provide educational materials on what these different medicines are. I want people to have access to reputable medicinal people, because I have worked with a lot of people who have gotten scammed, and because this stuff is gaining in popularity, there's so many, and we just talked about it too, like if their place does not offer you any sort of aftercare, don't fuck with them. You know what I mean? If they don't like, yeah. So I want people to have access to like really good medicine people and sacred spaces for that kind of stuff. I think that's a lot of what prevents people from this alternative path, is not knowing where to go. So I want educational materials like that, coursework. I want to be able to provide a space for other people who have their own unique recovery path, because it's not a one size fits all type thing. So I'm creating that kind of sacred space. And then I'm also starting a nonprofit, essentially, that's going to feed into it. So the membership fees for this space, I'm also creating, I've got these really cool t-shirt ideas. So part of those proceeds too are all going to go into this nonprofit that is going to help provide scholarships for addicts who are currently using. Because that's the thing that's the hardest part of my job, man, is I get to talk to beautiful people who want it and are crying on the phone with me, but they're homeless, or they're, you know what I mean? And like, and I can't do anything, and that's, it's, and I know that's by design, but I was like, I have to create a way for people who do want the help and can't I mean, we're in a freaking crazy financial situation as like, who's got $8,000 lying around to go to Mexico, let alone a friggin' passport, So I wanted to be able to find a way to create a scholarship. And even if it's not for ibogaine and some of these other medicines, or just like, again, dispelling the elitism of all, it's so expensive to heal holistically. And that's bullshit. It doesn't need to be. Yeah, it's bullshit. Yep.
100%.
Yep. So that's what I'm doing. So that'll be soul recovery. So my coaching business right now is called Harmony I Am, and that's like my one-on-one coaching. And I call it that because that's what my energy does. I harmonize energies. So Harmony I Am is my coaching, but again, like I said, so soul recovery is going to be the platform. And the foundation.
Sweet. And everybody, I am going to, as usual, put everything, all the notes and stuff in the description below, or in the description. Check her out. I mean, or if you know somebody, if you're struggling yourself,
please send them my way. Send them my way, man. I mean, like, yeah, my biggest platform is TikTok. Again, listen, that was a surprise to me, but on TikTok, I'm at Cosmic Soul _guide. Same thing as with Instagram. But yeah, literally fastest, easiest way to get a hold of me is my email. I try to funnel everything to email because my brain can't keep up with all the outlets. So my email is harmonyiamcoaching@gmail.com. Find me. I'd love to help. Yeah. Even if it's just advice. My consultations are free too. So like, even if you don't have money to pay me for coaching and you just have questions, let's just hop on the phone. I'll try to just like info dump, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Awesome. Yeah. So let's see. What did I write down here? Okay. So something I feel like we might have not tuned into enough or at all, I'm not sure, is because I made the statement, about spirituality, just because you do this whatever doesn't make you spiritual. But what I would like to add to that is that what makes you spiritual is basically connecting to your heart, and everything else kind of falls into place. I think that's what spirituality is. If you take the heart out of spirituality, it's like a purse. It's like jewelry. What's the word? It's a
accessory.
Accessory.
Yeah, exactly. An ego accessory, a badge. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, if you take the heart out of it, yeah. So like spirituality is finding your path, your way, which always includes healing, because we live here on earth where
Yep.
all of us been through some stuff. So,
Yep. All of us. That's what I
so
said. Recovery is not just substances. Yep.
so spiritual is healing, but it's again, it's really like the whole main thing is the heart. And to cover in that, the heart, to get into, or to get to the fifth dimension, it's not because you're better than other people, but
No,
it's
right.
because you see the world through the heart. That's all the fifth dimension is. It's expanding your perception to include your heart, not just your eyes, your ears,
Yeah.
your whatever senses.
Yep.
Makes you in the fifth dimension. It's as simple as that.
Amen. Yeah, that's perfectly said. Yep. I love that. I love it because it really is that simple. Yep.
Yeah. So the last thing I wanted to mention, the thing that we spoke about in the beginning that I wanted to mention. So me and Amanda are thinking of getting Taylor on. She was on one of the episodes on Ascension Stories. So we're neurodivergent. Taylor has only been diagnosed with ADHD, but doesn't say anything because doctors don't always know everything. I'm just saying, just leaving it at that. But anyway, so me and Amanda here are autistic.
Yeah.
Hi
Absolutely.
guys.
Nice to
So
meet you. Asperger's, right?
right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the reason I don't use the word Asperger's anymore is because it's no longer in the DSM, which
Is
is
it now? Is it gone? Good. Yeah.
many
That's
years. It's been gone for like I feel like at least 6 years.
okay. Yeah. That was always my cousin. I just always remembered it because I did have a cousin who was diagnosed with it. And I was like, man, I resonate with you, boy. You know what I mean? And yeah, that was, yeah. Yeah.
So,
I like the spectrum because it's
yeah.
just,
Yeah, I like just like the neurodivergent or spectrum or whatever. I used to say Asperger's because I technically like I was like autism sounds severe.
Yeah, right.
Understand it very well. It's what society still kind of thinks that it's like it's only when it's like a severe disability. It's not. It's not.
Yeah.
Very different abilities or hardships
Yep.
on the spectrum, different ways of being able to function. And a lot of people are out there that are on the spectrum, on the autistic spectrum,
Yep.
that have no idea because they can pass as normal.
Exactly. That's huge. And that's why I think it's so important that we talk about it. Cause that really was honestly, like you said, and I'm sure your Kundalini stuff was like same, was like, my masks went away. I didn't really know that, as I like had hunches where I was like, that could really be a thing. But once my masks went away, I felt so naked and exposed because I couldn't like just geek out in the middle of a grocery store or like talk to myself out loud or like play with my finger. That just like the things that I do to like feel grounded. I couldn't not do it anymore, and so I really had to get comfortable with embracing that, because I was like, okay, this is what it is now. Like there's no reason to mask. But of course, like I said, when you don't know it's a mask, I didn't know it was a freaking mask. I had no idea. I thought I really was that confident, crazy girl, which I am ultimately down the road.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to we're gonna, if it works out, we're gonna have this video. I'm really looking forward to us getting together. I have a feeling we're gonna have a lot of fun because the three of us technically never got together.
Yes.
It's always like 2 on 2. You know what I mean? Like one.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, right, yeah.
So I already have a couple of autistic videos, you guys, if you have not checked them out yet. One was with another woman that's been diagnosed to be she seems like a normal person, but she has extreme hardships, etc., etc. She is currently a medicine woman that works with just sensitive beings, kind of like help them get balanced and feel good and grounded and powerful, etc. And I did another one which was like me and 3 other ladies that are also neurodivergent. I finally released that video just last week, and then like I said, this will be the 3rd one. If it happens, I think it's gonna happen. I don't see why not.
Yeah, I think it's gonna happen.
We're gonna have a long time.
Yeah, I know. Talk about cats, man. Yeah.
Oh my god. Can you imagine if I'm not even gonna go there. All right. So yeah, thank you so much for being here and all the work that you do. You're amazing, guys. Make sure you check her out. If you know somebody that needs her help, please, like, she offers free consultations. You know, eventually down the line, you know, there'll be other ways that she offers stuff, you know, because she obviously is just one person.
I'll make it accessible, man. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so like these Ascension stories, you know, part of what I'm doing is my biggest thing is to make sure, like, you know, we present, like, you know, whoever's on, that we're presenting, hey, we're weirdos, like, it's okay to be weird, right? Like, you're not alone. That's the whole thing. But like, you know, also just what was my point? I forgot. Jesus Christ. Okay, so yeah, I forgot what I was saying. Yeah, you guys, thank you for
Yes.
watching. Thank you, Amanda, for being
Thank you,
here.
everybody. Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Yeah,
All
pretty
right,
much.
you guys. Bye. I'll see
Bye,
you in
guys.
the next video.
Woo!